just a little bit more Q&A. There are quite a few questions that we've collected for our speakers, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lynn and Christina.
Okay, so I am going to try to answer, we're going to try to answer all of these questions. It sounds like the folks at the lab are going to type up some responses for us to these that can be sent out. As a reminder, on the Teacher Residency Grants website, which there is a link to in Lynn's presentation, there are Q&A documents for each specific type of grant, and many of these questions can be answered, are answered there also. So first question that I have is, there are extra messy issues with the residents who received special ed credentials due to COVID extensions. How might we address those issues in our reporting? I want to make sure that it's accurate. So make sure that typically during COVID, what we found is many people were being recommended for a preliminary credential with additional requirements, whether that was TPA, RECA, it's really TPA and RECA that were the two requirements where you could still earn a preliminary teaching credential, or maybe both. So there are options for that in the spreadsheet. And if there is not an option, that's where you go, to a notes to the far right-hand side and type a note for us, and we'll follow up on any questions that we have. If you have a specific question, feel free to email us. Like if there's a specific resident you want us to look at their line item, we're happy to do that. Next question is, if a resident completes their residency in one credential area, let's say single subject math, but adds on science at the end of the residency year, is hired as a science teacher at the end of in their LEA, does that meet the required criteria of the grant? It depends on your application. If your grant funded program is for STEM, and you say in your grant funded program that you have a need for both math and science teachers, then yes, I think we could make that work. If there's a resident who is earning a credential type, a new credential type that is not ever mentioned anywhere in your approved program, that's going to be a little bit more problematic, especially if it's in an area where there's not designated teacher shortages according to the legislative language. So if you have a scenario like this, again, it's probably best to email us directly, but you always go back to what you said you were going to do in your application. And if it doesn't meet that, then you need to reach out to us, and it will probably not be something that we can really have much wiggle room on. Is there any guidance for those who are interested to join credential programs? I'm not exactly sure what that question is. Maybe the person who asked that can type that in the chat, and then maybe Lynn, you can look for that. Sorry, I'm skiing through some of these questions we already answered. They already have an answer. Somebody asked about the spreadsheet with regard to sexual orientation and gender identification. Sexual orientation actually is a category that we are no longer going to be reporting on, so you will not need to gather that information. But gender identification, yes, we still gather that. That is one of the areas that the commission is particularly interested in, especially because teaching is a very female-dominated career, and so especially for people who say in their applications that they're trying to hire more people who identify as male in their LEAs, then that's why that is still a category that we collect. People always can select that do decline to state, which takes care of anybody who feels uncomfortable support with that information. A CDS code is a county, district, or school code. It is given to your LEA by the CDE, the California Department of Education. You can literally Google, how do I look up my school CDS code? And there's an easy process to go through. Since testing fees are now waived, but my grant was going to pay for some exam fees, do we still get to give out exam fee stipends received from the state? So in this case, if you wrote supporting your residents with exam fees in your application, this is a perfect example of maybe you're not spending money in that category anymore. So you're going to take what grant funds you were given for that and reallocate it to one of your other approved spending categories, so that you can provide more support in a different area if you no longer need to be paying for the exam fees. We just talked about hard to staff schools. Think, is that everything? Did I miss anything? Okay. All right. I think we answered everything else. And because I'm seeing we have a shared document right now, everyone, that we're looking at that is telling us what the question was and what the answer is. So if we've answered it, it's already typed in there.
There's a couple I'm not seeing answers to. I'm just going to ask you, Christina, maybe you answered them in the presentation. Is there any guidance sheet for those who are interested to join credential programs?
Yeah, that's the one I wasn't really sure what was being asked there. I'm not, for people who are interested in earning a teaching credential and enrolling in a program, I think we have parts on the commission's website, how do you earn a teaching credential? But that's not really part of the residency work, because with residency, you're already in a teacher preparation program and you are being recruited specifically because of you meet a certain set of criteria to become a resident with a partner LEA. So people who are, just starting their journey as an educator, we don't provide much information through that, through the residency grants team. There are other areas on the commission's website that people could go to for that information.
Okay, and then there was one from Robin. What about using comparison data like retention rates between resident and non-resident populations within a credential? Have any programs gathered and reported on comparison data?
It's not required for the grant reports. I'm sure there are programs who have gathered that information. I'm not sure if there's anybody on the call who would like to volunteer to have somebody contact them, if that, and I think that some of the work that, West Ed and the lab do in some of the other support series might get to that, but I don't think that we're collecting that data, statewide.
I saw a question around when programs are making changes, like for example, if they're moving money between programs, how do they let you know about that change between the categories that they already have?
Yeah, if it is 10% of your grant award or more, you need to communicate with us about it. Just send us an email. And if it is less than 10%, you can just make the shift between your approved categories.
And I think one of the last ones on here I see from Kathy Howard. Could you please remind everyone exactly how to submit these? It has changed, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things I was talking about a little bit earlier with the shared Microsoft SharePoint for 2018 grantees. That Microsoft SharePoint folder. If you've lost access to that and you're a 2018 grantee, feel free to email us and we can get you that information. If you're a 2021 grantee, I'm not sure what the system looks like yet. So we will be communicating once that system has been developed. I do think I remember seeing a question in the chat about how do you know if you're a 2018 or a 2021 grantee? You could go back to your grant application, the RFA that you submitted to. If you don't have that, basically, if you're a 2018 grantee, you should be in the 4th cohort of supporting a grant-funded residency program. So we've been working together for quite a while. If you received a grant award either in the 2021 or 2022 calendar year at any point, you are considered a 2021 grantee because that was the most recent allotment of funds that we received from the state to host grant competitions.
I think just, are there any other questions that might come up or that have surfaced as we've been responding? I think we have time for one more. Okay, no questions, Dr. J?
I thought I saw one about spreadsheets. I think Lynn answered that, but if you wanted to reiterate, like when the spreadsheets can be expected for 2021.
We'll be emailing out the spreadsheet template and the timeline documents this week sometime. So we'll we have those available and they'll be going out to in an email to all grantees.
Well, great. Thank you so much. Let's show our two presenters, all of our presenters, actually, some love. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And also, I want to personally thank you for making all of these great tools, the timelines, the spreadsheets, the lookup numbers. You didn't have to do all of that, but I know that it will be, I greatly appreciate it. And I hope that you all do too. So let's show Christina and Lynn some love. Thank you. And you can see in the chat. Lots of love being thrown your way. All right, over to you, Gina.
Okay, everyone. So we want to remind you, if you, I'm sure most of you on the call have already applied for these grants, but they are all open, or they're open again. So we have currently the expansion grant. Let's do the 27th in a couple of days here. So make sure you get those in. Christina, anticipated RFA release schedule for fall and spring. Do you want to kind of talk about that very quickly?
Well, as long as money is still available after these next couple of rounds, we will have another one. We haven't discussed the timelines yet. Usually we try to have a timeline where they're going to receive the funds by December, so that they could implement a cohort in January of the following year for the fall. Is typically the pattern that we've tried to stick to.
Thank you. And then making sure that if you have any questions, first and foremost, Christina and Lynn have done a great job of gathering all those questions about the grants and applications. Go to their FAQs. That's typically where we find all of our answers. If you don't see the question on there, feel free to email the teacher residency grants team directly or the lab. We gladly get those answers for you. You can also attend one of our coaching sessions, which I'll talk about in just a bit. But before we move on, this is very important for your residents, making sure that you provide them the information around the Golden State teacher grant opportunity. It gives them more funds for them. So on top of their stipend, they have access to these monies. I highly suggest and recommend that you not just give them the flyer, but that you build in, 10, 15 minutes of coursework time or professional learning time when you're in space with them, get them to that website, show them where this is at. And actually we can put this in the chat before we leave of where you can get to this website. But these are funds for your residents. You want to make sure that they have access to these and know how to acquire them. Looking ahead, we have a couple of events we want to make sure you're aware of where we can support you here at the lab. We have the virtual lab power up that's been going out in our newsletter. If you do not have our newsletter, you can go to our website, sign up to get our newsletter so you can hear all about the events that are coming up. February 9th is our next one, 10 to 12, where we're going to be talking about creating coherence and alignment when it comes to resident and mentor training. We have two partners sharing. We have San Joaquin, Karen Compais, who's here with us, will be there, and also Alice Hayes from Bakersfield. The Bakersfield team will be presenting with us. So join us on February 9th. We also have a CTC teacher residency grant program application and support series. Some of you have joined us for that. If you're interested in applying for teacher residency grants or you know someone, please send them these flyers. We provide grant coaching support. We give you an overview of the grant. We have drop-in sessions on Mondays. And then on Wednesday, we actually can help you with the writing. So join us for those wonderful events that are also supported by the teacher residency coaching team, which entails Holly, Karen Compais, Holly Gonzalez, who you saw earlier, Karen Compais, Alice Hayes, and Zaya Vera from Oakland. So great team of coaches, Shari as well. She was here earlier with us. And
Gina,
something,
I'm sorry, could I just jump in really quickly? I think I'm not sure if I was totally clear, since you just talked about the support series. Just to really quickly recap, this Friday, there's an expansion grant due deadline for the current expansion RFA. In about 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to be releasing a combined expansion and implementation RFA so that folks can get funding over the summer to implement a program starting in fall of 2023. And then, as I mentioned, the fall one that we're going to put out will be due in the November-December timeframe, as long as funds still remain.
thank you, Christina. That's great. So come on into our CTC Teacher Residency Grant Program Application Support Series. It's a very long name, but there's lots of support there for you. And then something new that we're actually starting, which we're really excited about, is we are providing resident and mentor professional learning for free. We will have Dr. Sandra McCurry there. It's a 3-part professional learning virtual workshop where residents and mentors can attend and learn more about effective instructional strategies for multilingual learners. And here's the exciting part, the lab, for the first 50 that register, will give 1 free college unit to those who meet the requirements. And what are the requirements? They must attend all 3 workshops and do the homework. The homework is lesson planning and implementation, which is hands-on experience. So please, we will send, this is all in your resources. So if you click on the link, you can send this flyer out to your candidates so they get the opportunity to earn 1 free unit, which will also hopefully move them up on the salary schedule. And then there's always room for members at the lab if you want one-on-one support to dig deeper into, how you're implementing your residency programs and aligning them to those characteristics of a highly effective teacher residency. Dr. J, myself, one of the lab coaches can support you through that one-on-one. So feel free to reach out and you can email either Dr. J or myself. And the last one, the most exciting one, I feel like I need a drum roll for this. And we want you all to save the date for the California Teacher Residency Lab Spring Symposium, April 27th and 28th at the Exploratorium in San Francisco. Registration will open January 31st. We will be sending that out to everyone. So keep an eye out for that. That's coming out. And we do have an early bird special, so make sure you sign up quickly. And last but not least, Dr. J.
Yes, just want to say thank you again to everyone for joining us. We'd like you to take a moment and provide some feedback for us. I know I've got Zoom gremlins with the internet, but hopefully that didn't detract from all the amazing information shared, all the tools shared and tips from Current Urban Teacher Residency and from the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. So we use this information to improve. So if you can just take a moment, and I think the link is in the chat, to provide us with some feedback for today's session, we would greatly appreciate it. And I'd also like to give a plug for the symposium. It's an awesome day. You'll be able to work and connect and with each other, lots of great information. They typically sell out. So when that link comes out, register right away. Okay. All right. With that, we just want to say thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.